jerit. Halo, halo kalau ada siapa-siapa kan. Yang saya dengar bunyi.
Mahendran finally tracks down the sound to the remains of the 6th floor.
Bila kita sampai ke suara itu, kita nampak ada seorang mangsa dah ditimbus dengan dinding, menutupi separuh badan dia. Kita dapati nak mengangkat tembok itu satu masalah. Dia pun tolak.
The trapped woman is a Japanese national called Shizui Nakajima. She has been terribly injured.
Badan dia kebiru-biruan. Lepas itu kita tunggu bantuan sampai ke atas. Saya tunggu di bawah lebih kurang setengah jam lah.
As the rescuers struggle to free the stricken Shizui, they hear a second cry, but it's hard to locate where the sound is coming from.
We heard tolong like that, but we were looking around. It's all rumbles and all that.
Then one of the rescue teams spots a stick being poked through the rubble. As they begin digging, a heart-rending sight confronts the rescuers.
I was surprised. There was this baby and the mother. So we took the baby out, and I was so surprised that there was no injuries on the baby.
The baby, Noor Hamida, just 16 months old, is soon safe in the hands of her rescuers, and apparently unfazed by her astonishing escape. Meanwhile, the bombermen have at last freed the injured Japanese woman Shizui. A crane has reached the site and she is delicately lifted to safety. Later, the mother of the rescued baby is at last winched to freedom. She is an Indonesian maid called Umi Rashida, who had been trapped inside an apartment when the building collapsed. For the rescue teams and waiting relatives, the deliverance of these 3 survivors is electrifying.
We were quite happy at that time, thinking that the rest could be found.
But the rescuers now face a problem. No one can account for how many people were in Block 1 when it collapsed.
Obviously the numbers, it was a total unknown. It could have been anything from 150 down to 0. Obviously people were going to be there because it was still at lunchtime on a Saturday. So, but we didn't know how many. We just really didn't initially.
And an even more urgent question is, are any still alive? It's day 1 of the Highland Towers rescue. Hordes of television crews and journalists have staked out the site, and the news of the catastrophe is fast rippling out across Kuala Lumpur. People who have relatives and friends in Highland Towers are horrified to find out that they may have loved ones trapped in the wreckage.
So we was watching the Hindi movie, then got breaking news. They say the condominium collapsed. My legs start shaking and all that, you know.
Rahat's daughter Anna, her British son-in-law Robin, and her grandson were all in Block 1 at the time it collapsed.
In front of the TV waiting, listening news, because a Japanese lady was safe, and one Indonesian lady and her daughter was safe. So we was hoping maybe she also was safe.
Just hoping and praying that she survived this, I mean, it could be a miracle somewhere that she could be alive.
For those watching and waiting, this stirring news of 3 people rescued brings a surge of hope. Dr. Rizwan Bakar is waiting to hear about his sister Rosina and her husband Carlos Musa.
My feeling at that time, of course, was that of hope. Hope that the people who were in the building at that point in time were somehow still alive.
Dr. Rizwan volunteers as a rescuer, and he joins the many other civilians who offer to help the bomber men. Another volunteer, Mike Rickard, a safety engineer, is shocked by what he finds.
So just try and get hold of a tractor.
I just went up and said, can I help in some way? And there didn't seem to be any coordinated activities. Nobody seemed to be taking charge. It's what I call fighting fires. 1 minute saying, oh, there's some problem here, everybody rushes there, there's a problem over there, everybody rushes there. It was obviously disorganized, totally and absolutely disorganized.
Hours after the collapse, much still needs improvising. The rescue teams depend heavily on the generosity of local individuals and companies who donate vital equipment.
They responded very generously, especially the business community. They send in their heavy trucks together with the operators.
We have to open our mouth for help, it'll come.
Because the ruins of Block 1 remain so unstable, there is one simple piece of kit that is urgently needed on site.
We need to have acrojacks, which are these basically a form of scaffolding which allows separation of concrete structures.
With hundreds of acrojacks in place, the teams can enter deeper into the ruins without fear of further collapse.
We went in between those collapsed walls, and carefully we were removing stones and all this, trying to get access into the building.
To remove the rubble, initially there was only one way, and that was picking rocks up and passing down the line. And we didn't have the luxury of time. We were just going in and searching.
In the evening of the first day, Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir arrives. Ours is now an international news story, and Dr. Mahathir calls for help from around the world. The Prime Minister also wants answers. How many people are still trapped inside the building, and why did it collapse? As it happens, an engineer from the Public Works Department has already arrived on site to find answers.
My first question that came to my mind was, how did the building, which stood over the last 10-12 years, could have failed now?
The rescue operation will destroy vital clues, so Dr. Azbi must work fast.
We need to have some kind of photographic evidence, because in the search and rescue, when you try to move things from the rubble, you probably destroy some evidence.
Dr. Azbi makes an alarming discovery. He can hear water flowing down the slope towards the rescue site, which he fears might trigger another deadly landslide. So he takes immediate steps to stem the flow.
We had to do all that was required of the public works to ensure the safety at that time of the search and rescue, to prevent further movement of the slope behind the building.
It's just after midnight, the start of day 2 of the rescue. The rescuers receive dispiriting news. Shizui Nakajima, the Japanese woman rescued the day before, has died from her injuries in hospital. The news is a bitter blow. A mass of personal belongings has been removed from the ruins of Block 1. Painful reminders of lost homes. It's believed that there are 36 people trapped inside the ruins, but there is still uncertainty about these numbers. By days 2 and 3, international rescue teams are responding to Malaysia's call for help.
We have no experience for a disaster of this magnitude.
Experts fly in from Singapore, France and Japan. These highly experienced teams bring to the disaster site a battery of high-tech search and rescue equipment. The reinforced teams focus their attention on the service area stairwell that once linked the 2 towers of Block 1. This is where residents trying to escape should have fled.
People would have, as soon as the building started to move and shudder, would have tried to escape. And obviously their form of escape would be the stairs. They would be somewhere on that staircase.
Rescuers will tunnel towards the service block area from opposite sides. The international teams use search cameras, an extension of the human eye, to peer into voids inside the collapsed structure. The French deploy their tracker dogs, able to detect any human trace. It's hoped that these new strategies will speed up the rescue of any survivors.
Time is always the factor that all rescuers must take into consideration. You fight against time.
We recognize that a human being can only survive for so long. Dehydration is the worst thing to fear. Of course, time is critical.
As the rescuers redouble their efforts, the nagging anxiety that the other two blocks might suddenly fail deepens. Engineers have set up monitoring equipment to check for any sign of movement. On day 3, an alarm is raised from Block 2, sending everyone scurrying for shelter.
It's collapsing, and everybody just ran.
Can you imagine the rescuers all have to evacuate and quickly make their exit?
But Block 2 remains resolutely vertical, and So Chai Hock confronts the man who sounded the alarm.
Oh, why have you hit the alarm? And he pointed out to the building. And actually the clouds were moving. And he thought that the building was coming down. It was an optic illusion. It could be stress. So immediately I have him replaced. And I said, look, you can't have such thing going on.
On the rescue site, work resumes. The French team used sensitive listening devices to try and find sounds of life deep inside the collapsed tower.
Listening for very specific sound patterns. And the way they do it is by inducing a series of knocks which have a normal response. Now, if I gave the normal reaction would be, and that's the sort of pattern that they would use.
On the evening of the 3rd day at 7:30, there's a sudden buzz of excitement. A member of the French team hears an answering pattern of knocks.
The whole operation ceased to allow time to hear it clearly.
The knocking sound is faint and intermittent, but Mike Ricard has never doubted what he heard.
It was a very distinct reply, and I listened to it, and that reply was repeated and repeated. It sort of made the hairs at the back of my neck stand up. I mean, I could hear somebody somewhere in the vicinity was replying to this induced knock.
The sound galvanizes the rescuers and raises hope among the waiting relatives.
They heard knockings and all. I sort of believed that. Because it is possible for somebody to actually be knocking and respond to what the people are doing on top. That gave me hope.
Now all of Malaysia prays that the rescuers have at last found another survivor of Highland Towers. 5 days after the catastrophic collapse of Highland Towers Block 1, the rescue operation continues day and night. So far, just 3 of the residents who were inside at the time the tower collapsed have been found alive. One of them, Shizui Nakajima, has died from her injuries in hospital. But now, the French rescue team has detected the sound of knocking from somewhere deep inside the rubble and have been using the knocks for over a day to try to locate one or more survivors. The rescuers know that this fragile sound is the last chance to find anyone alive.
It came from within the structure, that's all I could say. Where within the structure, don't know, because the way the sound travels through concrete is weird and wonderful. You can't say it's over there and how far over there. You just don't know.
we do not give up so easily. We will continue. Even we can